Hi and welcome everyone. This is Lavender Sky Panther. It's Friday, October 7th, 2022, and this is show number 170 called Nightcraft Conundrum. It's a collection of images and sky observations happening August 24th through the 31st, 2022. And this is a very late night recording for me, so I'm going to try to stay upbeat and move through this rather quickly. I'm in the process of doing serious catch up on shows. I have a lot of photos in the hopper, so to speak. So this one is only going to get to covering the end of August, and I still need to move through September and catch us up to today, so bear with me. I'm having a little few detours along the way, which I really appreciate and welcome. If you look at previous shows, number 169 with some outrageously incredible photos coming out of Australia, and show number 168 featuring photos of scenes happening over North Texas. So check those out if you haven't already. They are well worth it as well. All right, this time around we're going to be covering the skies over Miami, Florida again. So this is the cover slide I'm going with. However, in the true Lavender Sky Panther style and tradition, I usually have one or two alternate cover slides that I just can't seem to just leave behind. So I want to show those as well. So here we go. This one was going to be called Prismatic Phoenix. And for obvious reasons, we'll touch on that later in the show. And then we have Sky Air. So I hope you appreciate the one that I selected. And if not, see which one of these covers you would have liked the best. All right, now I'm going to have Words, Wisdom, Spirit of the Day pages. I'm going to move through them rather quickly because really this is for my own interests. I want to document. I have 75 YouTube shorts to date. I started playing around with that feature, you may have noticed. And usually I set some sky scenes to music because they're like little quick sketches. It's sometimes easier and quicker for me to get out some interesting, fascinating phenomena that are happening on any given day in a 15-second short. So I hope you've been enjoying those, and if not, it's just a creative outlet for me. Hopefully you can share dance or dance along on some of the ones that have the music set to them. So this is just a collection of those. They're still all posted, so have a look if you like, if you haven't already. And I also started introducing some shorts that have a card of the day, some more, in the spirit of words, wisdom, and spirit of the day. And those will run anywhere from 50 seconds to a minute, just anything that I feel drawn to share and that I'm guided to share with everyone. So again, hope you enjoy it all, and let's get into the main part of the show. Now, I am going to preface this by saying, first of all, a heartfelt thanks and a hearty welcome to all of you, whether you're new or returning to the channel. And this is going to be a somewhat longer show with more slides than I usually do. So I am going to not take the easy route out, although it will be easier on me to do this, especially since it's so late. But I'm going to ask you to take a look at some of my earlier shows if you're not familiar with my format and how I analyze and break scenes down and narrate them. What I'm going to preface with is that all of these scenes are over the skies of Miami, Florida this time, once again. And also, I'm going to rely on all of you to do a little more breaking down on your own instead of me really hand-holding and walking through each and every moment of these photos as much as I can. So I'm really going to be selective this time around on what I actually narrate, and I invite you to have fun finding the other stuff that I either, unintentionally skipped over or just didn't have time to get to in some of these scenes, or maybe, just missed altogether if I didn't see it. Now, as always, I am narrating this as I look at a laptop screen, just to give you an idea. That's a very specific size that I look and view the photo at. If I narrated the show looking at a smaller, like thumbnail size, the show would be completely different as far as what I pick out. Just optically, there's just things that you see at different scales in a different way. So hopefully you can be there watching and cheering me on and saying, hey, look over to the right or to the left. There's something really big there. So if I missed something very obvious, it wasn't intentional. It's just a function of looking at a bigger screen versus a small screen, as you might see if you have both yourself, if you have a laptop or bigger size screen, plus a handheld device, and you play the show at the same time, looking at the two different scales, toggling your view up and down, you may get an idea of what I'm talking about if you don't already know that. Okay, so here we go. We're just going to jump right into it. Now, this particular scene, I was driving on a major highway, and I couldn't really stop except for at lights, but I was looking out the window to the east, And I just noticed this entire assembly of quote-unquote cloud was really low in the sky, and there was a lot happening along the fringes, along the perimeter of it. Now, I am saying cloud in quotes activity for anyone who's new. When I put cloud in quotes, that means I am absolutely saying there's cloak and craft or objects going on in that scene, and that's just my little way to call it. So that you know. So for throughout the entire show, I'm calling out stuff that'll say that's a strange cloud in quotes. I'm saying it's an artificial cloud or plasma as cloaking material generated out there to hide cloaking crafter objects, more often than not. So here we go. So I'm looking at this. It was getting stranger by the second. And so I took a picture. I'll have better ones where I could stop at the light, at the traffic light, take better pictures. So here's with some enhancement, and for anyone new, I'm just taking the original photo. I am only changing levels of characteristics of the photo in a certain software. It can be any number of software programs. All you have to do is find one that allows you to adjust the color saturation, the brightness, and the contrast, and that is it. That's all I'm doing is tweaking those levels up and down a bit. So in that case, we arrive at, there's a weird kind of texture and object happening over here on this part of this overall cloud assembly, again, cloud in quotes. Also, something weird starts popping up over here. Now, the red could be part of a lens flare, so I can't conclusively say, oh, there's some kind of object with something shooting at it or shooting out of it on this particular scene, so I'm not going to say that. But what I am going to say is there's something weird and kind of lumpy and either rock or egg shape back here that looks like it has divots or craters of some kind. It's just really weird. What further compounds the weirdness is this kind of haze happening around it. So I can't quite get at what's going on for sure. I just, also with intuition kicking and just something weird was happening around the perimeter of this whole thing, as you're going to see in a second. Also, this looks like a cloaking object because we come in here, we have a near right angle where we have a sky imprint or something that's darker cutting into this otherwise lighter body of quote-unquote cloud. Anyway, we're going to move along. So still, it just looks strange. This looks like a perfect round object of some type here. Also, where I have the question marks, we have a triangular form, very distinct, very symmetrical. So that was also very odd happening around this thing. And as we continue looking at and zooming out a bit, look at this overall thing. It's just strange, extremely low in the sky. We have a kind of a triangular form backlit here. And then look at A and B. We're really going to take a good look at this. There's other weird stuff happening over this whole thing, like including this again. Weird texture, weird form. It looks very structured and organized, very engineered. It's probably a cloak and craft happening right here, pointed ellipse shape or almond shape. But let's look at A and B because these get really strange. Already at A, you can make out like a claw-like form, and it's at the end of this weird like trail coming straight to it. And then that trail continues all the way down here and like forks off. It's very bizarre. Then we have this more solid object, albeit cloaked, happening down here. So it's almost like something is trying to shoot at this. If you can imagine these two things are at war with each other, that's just kind of what I'm intuitively picking up. Because it's still so strange, this thing like dive bombs into this area and maybe shoots something down at this thing. You'll see why I say that in a minute, the shooting part. So here we go. I'm removing all color out of here because sometimes it helps us see things in a different way. The brain-to-eye connection changes up a bit when I take out the color. So again, I'm seeing a very prominent object cloaking in a weird way over here, a cloaking object here in a weird way, something also cutting in and happening down here. Not to mention, God knows what only is going on, cloaked in this bigger territory itself. But look over here back to B.1. This is a really strange looking little object with something else happening beyond it. We're going to zoom in on it in a minute. Also looks like another object flying off this way. And again, we've got this weird claw-like thing coming down, somehow in association with this. So we're going to zoom in a bit. Here we go. Here at the top left is that A.2 thing. Really weird looking. Looks like it's extending down this way. Again, to me, looks like it's shooting at this, and you'll see why. There looks like a loop-to-loop happening in here. All kinds of really weird stuff. I invite you to take a good look at this on your own time and see what else you can find. As I always say, the longer you look at any of these photos, the more you're going to find well beyond whatever I'm going to cover or say about it. So we're going to zoom in on just the claw piece at the top. I'm calling the claw. Look at this. It's very pronounced, and it's just strange that this thing kind of trails in, and then it becomes more solid into this object. So I can only conclude that this thing kind of flew down out of the airspace, with this trail right connected to it, as it approaches this overall scene. Now here's that that thing that I'm calling like it's firing at this object, because look how close it's coming down at it. And it looks like this piece maybe flew up out of the way to get out of the way. I have no idea why this thing is doing a perfect little loop-de-loop. And there's other weird stuff happening beyond this object. Now, consider this carefully. Look at the scene. Look at where everything is in relation to each other. We've got this pronounced more triangular form down here and like weird little things happening over here. But it's important where this is sitting relative to this, as you'll see in the next scene. Actually, sorry, next couple of scenes. But still, we're talking about the same area. So this thing is diving, shooting down this way, I'm just going to call it. Then we have this object is starting to emerge as a more pronounced clear object with clean edges, a straight line, looks very symmetrical here. And then down here, it looks like some weird things are happening, and I think we get a better glimpse of that later. So I'm going to say there's like a bunch of cloaking craft on the fringe of this quote-unquote overall bigger cloud, and they're having a little bit of a skirmish with something else. I say that because keep your eye on B.1. We're going to zoom in, and here we go. We get a clear view at this, okay? Now watch what happens. Bam. Like it got like hit. I mean, that's all I can say, is it looks like it just divided this thing into pieces. But see what you see. That's what I see. Okay, now this is looking at a slightly different view. By this lamppost down here, you can kind of get an idea of how low in the sky all of this is happening. Where this post is, there's just a huge parking lot beyond it. And so here's this thing coming in with this weird trail, right? And now it looks like it's, hitting into this over here. It's just all really, really strange. So again, see what you think. This is not left by a traditional plane, I can tell you that. And here we're going to play around with the contrast a bit so you can see kind of the nature of and the strangeness of how that trail is even created. Normal planes, don't create a trail like that, especially not this low, so low to the ground. We're going to go and put more contrast on this. And again, on your own time, kind of check out what else could be going on here at the perimeter of this thing. And that was that scene, just really bizarre. And it just felt very weird as well. Okay, now we're looking to the west. And this was just strange in how, this angle of this quote-unquote cloud material is coming down here. And it just felt also, again, very strange. It was just got some kind of weird, more solid mass. And again, just pitching on such a bizarre angle. And with a divide and then other artificial-looking clouds happening beyond. They don't look like natural clouds. And so with some enhancement, we see something's brewing up in this area. There looks like a standalone craft right here. If you have the luxury of zooming in on your screen, whatever you're looking at, this looks very distinct and very rigid and very engineered. Something else is happening here along B. Just a lot of strange little anomalies. It might not be so obvious on this one, but it is to me after looking at this for almost 3.5 years now. Looking over here too, I didn't see this before. There's a triangular shape over here and another shape coming perpendicular into this hard line. And as I've been mentioned on many other shows, you don't have natural clouds in nature up in the sky that have like a line coming this way and then another movement coming in perpendicular to it. That's just not natural cloud behavior. All right, so then we're zooming in a bit more. Again, we just see a more accumulated mass here, doing something different than everything else. Looks like a little hard piece over here with reflective, kind of maybe reflecting light. So just a lot of curious things. I'm not going to belabor this one too much. Again, really dig around, look at this photo on your own, and I'm sure you're going to see other things pop up to your attention on it. Okay, now we're going to shift our attention, also looking west, but now this is just a little standalone piece. And the more you look at it, again, the more I look, the more I start to find when I put some enhancements on this thing. So we look to the right, we take all color out. I see a very distinct line, a curve here, and a weird form here, and this is trying to do something else than what this is doing, and it's got a triangular shape. So we're going to zoom in, you can see that triangular form. It actually looks like this triangle is detached, from this, or just hovering above whatever this is. There's a big curve happening in here, weird little structures crisscrossing in here. And here's this, look at this like scratch mark it looks like. So this is another one of those head scratchers, like what is going on here? Also, if you kind of look at the perimeter, weird stuff's happening all around this thing. And we'll just zoom in a little bit more, take a look at it with some enhancement. And again, you'll start to see some prominent features pop out. And again, we've got a pure black curve here. It couldn't be any more perfect. Looks very machine part-like to me. And then again, we've got this triangular form doing something over here in the background. Don't have any answers on this, probably just a whole lot of questions. Let's see what you think is happening. I'm just going to call it a cloaking craft of some kind. All right, now we're looking to the northeast, and this was looking really weird. Again, clouds don't move on a sharp angle like this in the sky, at least not the ones I know from many decades in the past. They're starting to do it a lot now recently, so I've got to suspect that there's artificial activity happening in here. So in this case, we have like these etched lines. They're perfect parallel lines to each other, like a claw mark got dragged across it. There's also looking like a kind of like an elliptical object kind of coming in here on the heels of this thing, this wispy-like thing. Anyway, with enhancement, this is what we get. And it looks like something, moved into this quote-unquote cloud, which again looks so artificial. Look at the perimeter. We've got these wispy-like, fringy-like things all along, feathering along the edges. That's not natural clouds. And then I don't know what this is. You could almost interpret it as if this is an eye and this is an eye, and it's a little front of a face, like a little koi or goldfish, Japanese goldfish, like acting like a remora on a bigger type fish, if that's the tail. And this one's facing one way and this is facing the other. That's the cloud play aspect of it. Otherwise, it could be some type of cloaking craft hovering on this other one. But see what you see. Hold on one second. Okay, just had to clear my voice. So here we're zoomed in on it a little bit. Looks like it could be leaving a little bit of a shadow. That's why I say it looks like it's hovering a bit. But again, see what you're finding in this photo. It gets more and more mysterious the more you look. Especially when you see this. This is now looking very symmetrical. If you look at this as a curve in the back, if that were a craft, and this is the front, this is a line with an angle and an angle, perfect symmetry. So I think this craft is zooming in here on the scene, and those are like trail marks left that look like claw marks or incised marks. Or this is being chased by something else that is got those lines. And so again, see what you think is going on in this scene. All right, this one gets very interesting. I did do a YouTube Shorts on this one called Ori in the Air, or at least that's in the in some title work on the video itself. So there is a video game called Ori and the Will of the Wisps, and it's a really beautifully done game as far as the imagery. And this thing over here at sea just kind of reminds me a little bit, has a feeling of that Ori character. Now there's this shape that's very distinct, and on a previous show I show that looks like almost like a fairy on one of the oracle cards I had. That's kind of like stuck on some kind of sphere or orb or globe with this, trail coming over the front of it. It's just really bizarre, very intriguing. So with some enhancement, we can draw out better, a little bit better, but about what's going on. But what the heck is this? It almost reminds me like a hood ornament on some kind of a vehicle. Or, this is a lesser fun image, but or like almost like a bug getting, stuck on the front of a car, not a bug, but like a butterfly. But anyway, see what you see in this scene. To me, it's very mystical, magical, and it's almost like a huge scaled elemental or fairy with some kind of orb, and I don't know what they're doing or what the relationship is or why it's seemingly coming out of this bigger quote-unquote cloud mass. But see what you think about that one. And as always, if you have any fun, fantastical notions of what could be going on with great imagination, feel free to leave that in the comment section below. Or if you have a technical response and you know what that is, or feel that you do, feel free to leave that as well. This is very, very odd, nonetheless. And we're going to look at it a little bit more enhancement. We start to see these pointed things, so these almost look like ears. Maybe this whole thing is a face that we're seeing head on in a weird way, if that's like the mouth, and these are the eyes or something. Anyway, like I said, this gets more mysterious by the moment, so I'm going to leave this one for you all to have fun and look at on your own time. We even have a triangle imprint happening up here off to the side. Okay, this is looking northeast, and this is just very strange by virtue of we've got extremely low cloud, unquote, that's all disintegrated, doesn't even look like natural cloud, extremely low in the sky. Then immediately next to it, we have a completely different form of a cloud, which you would only expect this more rounded shape to occur, maybe in a very cold climate or very high altitude. And all of this is subtropical to tropical Florida, very hot and humid, little to no wind. Then we get these weird things happening all around it too. So what the heck is going on in this scene? You just don't see a cluster of all these radically different types of quote-unquote cloud in one place in the sky. So, I'm definitely suspecting cloaking craft going on in here. See what you think. We're going to zoom in. Look at this thing. It's very structured, has a, very deliberate design to this thing. So I'm going to call that at B.2 a standalone cloaking craft for sure. And I suspect that there's absolutely a triangular cloaking craft here at A.2 and something else happening in here as well. Here's another odd one. Look at this. So we've got that A character, and then we've got perfectly formed triangular clouds. But then what the heck is this happening off to the right of it? And again, all of this is in the same proximity. And this is very weird too. What the heck is going on here, if not some type of cloaking craft activity? And I'm open to suggestions. I'm just seriously, like, this just doesn't happen. This is all very, very strange. Also, the more we look at where I have B.1, keep in mind, a lot of times some of these things can also be like red herrings and be like, oh, hey, look at me, I'm an obvious triangle. But in the meantime, we're missing sight of that there's a much bigger craft happening beyond here. So when you look at B.1 down here, this is also looking like a curve, like this could be one much bigger object or sky imprint. And I'm saying that because we also have like, it could be an imprint leg coming out here and symmetrical out here. So it's important when we're looking at all of this stuff. I often fall into the trap of like looking at the rigid shape, but I got to keep in mind to look at the bigger picture because we could be missing a whole lot of other bigger scale craft happening beyond because of that function. So see what you see. I have no idea what this thing is off to the right, what it's doing and why, but what one of these things in this case, and many of these things just don't look like they fit together in the sky. All right, now we're going to look to the west. And what got very interesting here is we have one type of quote-unquote cloud form or mass. We got weird shadows that don't really match up to the form in front of them. And then we have this thing emerging out. So I'm always looking at movement in the sky, especially when they oppose each other. So even if this were a natural cloud, which I'm saying it's not, it's, moving off at this angle. But we have something shooting out more or less horizontal from out of it that just wouldn't happen in natural cloud assemblies. We also got like a weird little bit off here to the right that looks like a cloaking craft. And we have other activity we can't quite see because the quote-unquote glaring white ball that's supposed to be the sun source, I do believe it's a solar simulator, artificial sun, concealing and veiling our true sun beyond. But that's something I cover extensively in a whole bunch of other shows. But anyway, there's no way we'd have something flying out in this direction while this thing's going off in this direction. So that caught my attention, of course. So with some enhancement, we just see the radically different nature and character of the form of this thing compared to everything else in front of it. And so we're going to zoom in, and the more we zoom in, we start to see, again, there's like weird texture and structure on this thing that's very different from everything else. And in this case, it almost reminds me, the reason why I called it Prismatic Phoenix, as this is one of the alternate cover slides that I put up in the front of the show. This looks like a head and a beak to me, almost like a Canadian goose in flight, just heading straight out of this thing. And these even look like legs with claws at the bottom. So that's why it's kind of tongue-in-cheek calling it a phoenix cloud in a cloud play way. But actually, it could also be a rigid engineered craft simulated to look like something organic or like a biological animal. Keep that in mind. Now down this way, it looks like we have a craft moving in the opposite direction, but we get this wing effect and this feather effect that has a very similar character to this thing. So I'm going to call these two very engineered craft, and this one just happens to be perching on the profile of this cloud or going into it, and this one is emerging out of it. Okay, this one's fun. I did a shorts on this one too, set to Echo and the Bunnymen Lips Like Sugar song. And it just reminded me, this looks like a wisp that just kind of flew down into the scene, doing like a swan dive into a pool. Looks like a head with the arms extended, if you can imagine that. And so anyway, I invite you to go look at the shorts to this one. And in the meantime, look at this. This thing is coming down, kind of doing this swan dive, as I cloud play call it. But then how is this coming down and making like a turn, like perpendicular, more or less? At a right angle, and then we have this just coming straight across below it. That makes no sense unless something artificial is going on. So I think something else is moving across this way, leaving a trail behind it. See what you think, though. Now we're going to look at this really odd scene. So I could only barely make this out to the naked eye. If you look on the left-hand side, it's the original photo, but I saw a very hard cut line moving horizontally as I saw other, line movement coming in on this thing. So I just knew something was going on in here. So I look to the right. Once again, I remove all color, sharpen up the contrast a bit, and we start to see, sure enough, this pure line. And now it even looks like it has a bulbous, kind of something like a bullet point coming out of this thing with shadow below it. And again, it's got rigid lines and weird little things happening all along it. Now I put a B.1 over here because I also see a hole over here. And this looks like almost like the front of a submarine, like a rounded form. It's all very strange. I'm going to zoom in a bit more so you can see this line I'm talking about with shadow to it, and this little like domed, cap or tip to it, and then the lines coming in at other weird angles to this thing. So I don't know if we're looking at the front of a craft that's like in cloak or what we're looking at. But again, we have this rounded portion here. It's really perfectly round. The more you look, you start to see little raised bullet points, almost look like rivets, and like a hole over here. So something of engineered design's going on. And then this thing in the foreground looks very triangular in shape. Lots of weird stuff happening here. See what you see. This is one of those examples that if you're looking at it at a smaller scale thumbnail size, you're really going to see more of what's going on than what I can, because on a bigger screen right now, it gets a little bitmappy and fuzzy. So see what you can see. It's very intriguing. Nonetheless, whatever's going on. Here you can see a really good view of this hole. There's an obvious hole happening right there. I'm going to go in one more time, and again, if you're on a bigger screen, it's going to be bitmappy, so just squint your eyes if you have a bigger screen, and you'll see what I'm seeing much more clearly, or look down at a thumbnail size scale image. But here we go. Here's this line with definite shadow happening all along the bottom of it. There's a raised point coming out at us right here with shadow, and then some weird lines doing something else altogether. So it's mystifying. See what you can find in that scene. All right, now we're looking off to the north. What caught my attention here is just the shapes of these are totally different. The consistencies of this smoke, if you want to just call it that for now, the vapor, the cloud material is just totally different. You look at the perimeter, these have more angular parts to them, which are not natural. And this just like disintegrates into a weird fringy puddling mess. So obviously something's happening here. These are two totally different things happening right next to each other. Again, very low in a tropical sky. So I'm zooming in just to look at the perimeter of these things. And at 8.1, I noticed something really odd happening here. It looks like structure and organized here at the top on the profile of this thing. Then we move over to here where it's acting totally different. And here I notice on B.1, this looks like an engineered shape, symmetrical, with a totally different pattern, just kind of resting on top of this quote-unquote cloud, or it's passing by with a vapor trail behind it. Hard to say. Very strange. Playing around with the colors, changing it up a bit just to see if we can see anything better here. And now I start to notice a very dark shape hidden behind all this weird, crazy, artificial cloud stuff. And another one echoing, another curve echoing beyond it. So, of course, I'm going to say there's cloak and craft hiding behind this mess. All right, this is looking off to the north. Actually, sorry, I didn't edit this. Didn't edit the little, the banner here down here. It should be looking east. Actually, looking east, southeast. So I'm looking up in the sky, and this just looked like weird imprints. One going this way, then like a little bridge across, another item doing something totally different, and then a clear triangular imprint. So this was very strange. I've never seen like three distinct shapes and objects kind of racked up to each other. And actually I see a triangular imprint on its side here as well. So with enhancement, I couldn't get at too much with this one, but you can clearly see that's like an outline to a triangular form or a diamond form. And each thing is doing its own thing. We even have it's like a shard of glass popping up out of here, at an angle. It's just all very strange, and you would never see some normal cloud, natural cloud, moving at one angle here, leveling out, and moving at another angle and looking triangular in form. Okay, then we jump from something like that to something like this, which, again, I could just barely make it out because there's a lot of particulate going on in the background in the sky. The sky should be a richer blue, but when you see all of this white stuff, you know whether it's man-made artificial chemicals sprayed into the sky or some other type of cloaking technology up in the sky creating this. Hard to say. But when we look to the right, I can filter all that particulate out with some of these basic tools. for enhancing, and here we go. So we see this vertical, wispy, weird little form here, and then something very straight happening behind it. So I think this is just layers upon layers of cloak. Sometimes these distinct figures, our brains are patterned to really pick those out. I think those are thrown out there as kind of like the red herring, you know, like the distraction, like look at me, so that you're not aware of there's a much bigger craft happening beyond. That's just my sense anyway. This could be an air elemental or some type of being or some other craft coming in and out of state or cloaking itself in a different way. I don't know. See what you think. Here I just zoomed in and playing with the brightness and contrast to get at a little bit more what's going on up in here. That's the best I can get, but something is crossing deliberately, looks like in front of this more vertical thing. See what you think is happening in that scene. All right, this just caught my eye because there's just two dashes coming parallel to each other, nothing else really apparent around in the sky. And so to the right with enhancement, yes, I see it looks like two objects with some cloaking material or plasma happening around them, and maybe something bigger happening beyond here. Then we're going to look at the perimeter of this cloud, and this thing was just acting so strange. It felt very strange too. But again, this is one of those cases where the overall cloud felt very artificial. On top of that, something's going vertical into this thing. And again, that would not happen in a natural sky. So with enhancement, we can see it looks like some type of almond shape or pointed ellipse is heading straight down with some patterning on it. And something else looks like it's happening beyond here, like a pure sphere at B.1 with some texture to it. And then all along this perimeter, there's some darker object happening in here. And whatever this smoke tuft stuff is tufting up, it's doing something strange too. Here there's a triangular form as well. So there's a lot of strange anomalies happening in this scene. We're going to zoom in on that pointed ellipse diving down, and we see other little tracings, multiple tracings. It looks very layered interdimensionally, whatever's going on in here. See what you can find. Oh, and then over here we have a really hard line following my cursor on an angle here, and that looks very triangular, like something else is cutting in and attached to this triangular form. All right, now this gets very interesting looking west-northwest, and at first I just noticed some strange shaped clouds like at B, and then obviously this fiery red, crackly, red, pink, orange, peach kind of coloration happening beyond. So obviously this huge cloud blanket is concealing the fact that we got something really red and pink happening beyond here. Do look at my description box below to see what could be causing this red pink glow, and see if you have any thoughts or ideas on your own. And as always, I invite you to look at other Earth and Sky watching channels to see what could be going on these days in the Earth's neighborhood, so to speak. So here we get a better idea with the enhancement changing. And I want you to look at this like a white burst here at the bottom where my cursor is to the lower right of 8.1. It's really white, like a hot spot. And I can't help but notice there's this line that's moving in a trajectory, if you follow my cursor, this way. So it looks like actually something is firing. Again, I'm doing my something is firing at something else theory. You know, it looks like it's trying to hit this object cloaking, because this looks like something cloaking beyond here. Or it's trying to aim for this thing at B.1 that's like leaving in that direction. Looks like a craft to me. Again, it looks like a wing, and it looks like an elongated triangle. So that's my little theory on that one. But we're going to zoom in on this thing. So again, you can just see it wouldn't look natural anyway for something to kind of be disturbed and in a ball, and then a straight line coming off of it. And that wouldn't happen with natural clouds. So with extreme enhancement and contrast, we see a weird rocky looking like, looks like a porous rock, like a coral. But it has like these two arms that look symmetrical to me. So this looks like a stick with something at the end and a stick with something at the end, or like a little weird little, if it were a sentient being with its little arms and hands, you know, at either side. But anyway, this definitely looks like something being shot up out of this, you know, mass, whatever it is. All right, now this is the cover image before it's enhanced. And what caught my attention, it's a little fuzzy and grainy because my camera can't do so well at night, my camera phone. But what caught my attention was this just didn't look and behave right for cloud material at nighttime. And we have something coming at an angle this way, this going off on a different angle, and this kind of coming down at one angle and then curving. It was just all really strange. So with enhancement, bam, this is what we get. This clearly looks like a standalone craft going off this way. I can't say what this whole thing is, although curves around clearly, and this looks like a triangular form at the top. This looks like a fish-like shape if the little tail is here, and this is a pointed ellipse at C.1. And then, but it also looks like this is bending. It could be the part of a bigger curve, you know, symmetrical thing. If this is like, if it were like, I don't even know what to say, not an axe or pickaxe, but I think you know what I mean. If this were like the stick coming in perpendicular, this would be maybe be like the pickaxe-like shape, rounded coming off of it. But to me, it does look like this is one arm of this big thing rounded and then comes back up this way with this coming in perpendicular to it. Or this is separate on its own. And now we're getting into a very aquatic looking to me type craft, or it could be a being. I see a hole here, maybe a hole here that would be the eyes. And this would be like the head of a squid. And then its legs would be going back this way. And it's diving into this, you know, perpendicular. So is this thing trying to ram whatever this thing is? Or is this piece attached to this creature, and this creature has like this curve, almost like a hammerhead shark effect, and it's ramming down into here? I don't know. Looks like there's a triangular dark triangle happening over here. This one is totally mystifying to me. But in no way, shape, or form would we have something coming in, an arm, you know, like a stick coming at a sharp angle this way, and this just doing its own thing, kind of moving off at a totally different angle in the sky. Anyway, see what you think is going on there. It's very intriguing. All right, equally intriguing is this scene to the north and looking up. Look at this. We see these triangular shapes overlapping each other. Here's an imprint of a triangular shape. Then this is like a, I don't know, like a weird warped diamond shape over here. So there's a lot of strange stuff going on. When we look to the right, I take the color out just to help us see things a little bit better. Clearly there's something going on here with intelligent design. Can't tell you exactly what, but look at this. There's an overall bigger triangular form diving in here. So I did set this one on a YouTube Shorts to the Imperial March theme from Star Wars, because they really just do remind me of looking up an Imperial triangular craft. Doesn't mean they are, but it just kind of reminded me of that. But see what you think is going on in here. All right, this is looking over to the east, over a shopping mall, and just couldn't help but notice this stood out. And again, we have movement coming in this way, movement going in opposing way. Looks like a triangle here in the front. So definitely I wanted to zoom in and check this out with enhancement. And that's not a natural cloud. So it looks like a little cloaking object is like flying up off of this thing. This might be something that's just kind of towing or docking to a bigger craft. See what you see. Then just looking to the south of where we were looking, there's this weird swoosh. And again, this looks very wisp-like. Is it an air elemental? Is it some type of cloaking feature for craft? I don't know, you be the judge, but this isn't normal cloud activity either. And here we can see a little bit more with enhancement. And again, probably more questions than answers. And we also have to look at, is just this something either as a red herring or something like happening in front of a bigger craft, and that's just like a little force field in front of it. This looks very symmetrical in the front, rounded and rounded. So I think that could be happening too. Maybe we're just seeing the effects of a force field or a plasma field around whatever is pushing through the sky. See what you think is happening. This gets really weird. We're looking now to the north. This is all happening in the same parking lot, looking around me. What got my attention, obviously, is not only are these clouds insanely low in the sky again, but these things are shooting up vertical from something that's more or less horizontal. It's just not done in natural clouds. I know I keep repeating myself, but it's just astonishing to me that we're witnessing these things these days. So we have something rising up and something rising up here doing its own thing. There's nothing to explain this with natural physics. At least natural, cloud laws of natural clouds moving across the sky. So see what you can find in these scenes. It also just felt really off. All right, this too, looking to the east. Look at this perfect wedge-shaped thing. And perfect line coming down here, perfect one here. I did a shorts, and this on this angle, while everything else is going straight. It's very humorous. This was in a shorts, and I think it was set to a One Republic song. But anyway, go check that out if you like. And we'll see what this looks like with enhancement. You can see there's a more solid object with it looks like plasma wafting over it. And I like to say wafting, that's just my personal preference. And then we have this thing. So this looks like an object that somehow is related to this. See what you think. We're going to see it. We're going to visit that one again in a second. Now, looking over to the east, this is straight at the bottom, and it looks like it's going up into a triangular form. Again, that's not a natural cloud formation. And that's all I'm going to say about that. It also looks like we have something diving straight down vertical, like the tip of a pointed ellipse happening, that we're just seeing the bottom of it here. Lots of weird stuff going on here. There's also a really sharp line going this way, and looks like another one this way, and the tip of a triangle here again. Something weird bulging right there as well, being cloaked. Okay, now we're going to look at this weird little thing, and look at this, has like a stick popping out of it. I don't even know what you would call that, but it's clearly something of an object that's like a machine part. It's not a natural cloud. And we're going to really zoom in on this. Look at it. I don't even have a word for that. So if you do and want to leave it in the comment section below, feel free. Look at this thing. I can't even begin. What is this? It's not a periscope. It's not an antenna. It's just a really bizarre shape popping out of this quote-unquote cloud. So anyway, let's see what you think could be going on there. All right, this looks really interesting too. It's kind of backlit a little bit. And here's with some enhancement. Looks like something's trying to form, or did form, or is actively just cloaking like that. You see a clear point. Even looks like a little force field, plasma field, or something, toroidal field happening in front of it. So to me, that's absolutely craft cloaking. Okay, this was just weird sky patterning. Again, normal clouds don't do this, especially when you see a totally different cloud right next to it and right above it. So to me, that's got to be cloaking craft activity. This is interesting, looking west. This is what could be called a second sun, or it could be an organic, a natural planetary body. Could also be something artificial, but it's not the sun. And whatever is supposed to be the sun, we see that glaring effect happening beyond. So this is a totally different object. And I used to track this more closely a few years ago when I first noticed it. And there would be times when it's on this side, and then times where it'd be somewhere else in position relative to the quote-unquote sun. So this is something that apparently orbits or moves in different trajectories of what is the so-called sun. So anyway, see what you think is going on here. Oh, I know for 100% fact that is not a lens flare on this one. All right, now this gets interesting. Looking west up in the sky, just notice this kind of prisma effect, the spectrum coming around this quote-unquote sun, which again I think is just the glaring effects of of technology, solar tech, concealing the fact that our original sun's somewhere far beyond it. But anyway, in this particular scene, not only did I see that spectrum forming, but then I see this very rigid line going this way, a very straight rigid line going this way in a darker form beyond. So I'm saying that's cloak and craft. We look at 8.1 over here to the right-hand side, and you can see that dark blue figure. It's a very distinct geometric shape. So we're going to zoom in. Here we see a little bit more of the spectrum, which, by the way, some people think, oh, it's a chem. I've seen people post something that it's a chembo, chemicals generating that. I think much like people are thinking it's like gas or oil on the ground after a rain. You kind of see that oil slick, and you get that kind of spectrum effect. I don't think that's what's going on here. My personal opinion, not that to rule that out, but my personal opinion is that this is cosmic light that is emanating from behind this thing and trying to reach down past this and bypass this solar tech that's parading around as a white glaring sun. Again, our natural sun was always a soft yellow, pulsing, lightly pulsing, had a very healing light coming out of it. This is glaring and at times can feel like a microwave is hitting your skin. So I'm not buying it. That's our sun. I do believe our sun's been hijacked. This is the solar tech in front of it, which has patents even in the 1960s for it. So it exists in detail with drawings, and you better believe it's already been implemented. So anyway, I think this can be some other type of better light trying to reach the Earth, regardless of what this thing is doing. That's my personal theory. Now, back to this darker shape beyond. Again, we can make it out. It just seems like something isn't right with this picture. And here we see it with enhancement. You see it a little bit better. And here, in case you don't see it, I'm putting these lines just as a guide to kind of show you the general gist of what I'm seeing. It's possible this thing is even bending over to a point, but this is just like the dummy down version of where it could be happening. Okay. All right, now dummy down for myself as well, just to kind of get at what is going on. So now on the left hand side is the original, the right hand is enhanced. This was just weird. I mean, can't we see this? These things, this collection of what? This is supposed to be clouds? I don't think so. And we get this ripple effect, these perfectly concentric parallel lines. Tells you there's some kind of wave pattern going on there. And again, I suspect that some of these craft can send out electromagnetic waves or other types of sonic signals to create these waves to help cloak it. But in this case, as I mentioned somewhere in a comment on another YouTube channel, it's like, you know, these quote-unquote craft, they're being really sloppy about it. It's like they want disclosure to happen, and they're doing it little by little, you know, by being a little bit obvious about it, but still a lot of people might not catch stuff like this. So like I always say, take 2 to 5 minutes a day, go out and look 360 degrees around you up in the sky if you're not doing it already. Do it periodically a couple times a day and start to notice patterns, and then you'll really start to see things like this will jump out at you the more you do that and practice it. So on the right hand side, we just get a little more clarity that this is unclear what's going on, so to speak. So I zoomed in a little bit more. I know also I've called this I've mentioned it before in other shows, I call it the staccato cloud effect, where things are choppy and blurry to the naked eye. And to me, again, that's just a function of this cloaking craft trying to deliberately generate a cloaking field around it, or it could be a byproduct of just its engine or however it works, so to speak. Not a literal engine, but whatever powers this thing, it may just be whatever is, you know, the output from that is creating this. But I think it's a deliberate cloaking device. As I look at this, I start to see an etched outline. You know, it shows me a clearer, symmetrical cloaking craft. At least that's what I see. And here with enhancement, you kind of see like, could be like a bigger deck or tower element on this more, you know, pie-shaped thing. So I definitely think that's a craft. And I think these are objects with it as well. Okay, this one gets a little fun. I did a shorts to the song Underwater Love by Smoke City, and is at least the original. And because this reminds me of an underwater scene of a diving stingray on the one side and a pufferfish on the other. When you look to the right, you might be able to see that better. But what's interesting is the imprint. There's also, it looks like to me, a triangular cloaking craft, because you see a line, sharp line here, and a sharp line here. And so zooming in, you know, again, that's a fun tongue-in-cheek little stingray. But look how perfectly triangular that is. It's got to be a cloaking craft diving down. And this too, I suspect, looks like a tube and like a opening at the end of it with something trailing behind it. We see more and more this looks like a symmetrical triangular craft. And here, showing you where I see that. So here's that geometry at B.2. Now I also start to see sharp geometry all around this thing, and that's why I'm showing these lines. So if you want to just look with me, I'm going to toggle back and forth and see if you see them. And there's going to be a lot more going on here as well, but these were just the ones that jumped out at me. All right, now this gets interesting too, because of this looks almost like a thumbprint, but totally out of character. This overall shape doesn't even look like a real cloud. Come on. Again, that's why I say like they, quote unquote, is any kind of ET or whoever's bringing these cloaking craft. They could even be from inner Earth for all I know, but it's definitely tech beyond what humans have, or they're being drawn in to help collaborate on them. But I think they are absolutely craft coming from somewhere else. And but anyway, in this case, like I'm saying, they're being sloppy about it, because that's not even trying to look like a natural cloud that's on this 3D Earth. And then we see this darker, you know, imprint over here. This might even be part of something bigger, like almond shape if you follow my cursor, because it looks like it has almost like, it looks like an eye, and it looks like it's repeated over here symmetrically. So I think that is one bigger craft. See what you think. We're going to zoom in on it one more time. Just, it's really bizarre. And then we look up here at 8.2. And then this starts to look very much like a very rigid curve. So I think there's a lot of different things cloaking up in here. And here's just one more view of that. And another one. I zoomed in one more time. Now we start to kind of see the character of what might be going on over here as well. It just gets weirder and weirder by the second. Well, speaking of weird, this is a dragon fruit. I don't know if you're familiar with it. I only came into awareness of this really in the past 2 or 3 years. Where I'm at, we make smoothies out of it. There's one variety that is white and has these little black seeds and kind of has maybe a taste of like a kiwi with a pear or something like that. And then we have one that's like a bright magenta pink. It looks otherworldly pink with the little seeds as well. And again, you can make that into a smoothie. So the weird thing about it was I enjoyed the fruit, I enjoyed the smoothies, but I never really thought about what kind of a plant it grew on. And it grows on this really weird looking cactus. And I say weird looking because people train it to go up a post, and then it looks like a person with a bad hair day with long hair. It starts draping down and dropping down everywhere, and these things sit at the tips. So if you have a chance and you're not familiar with what the dragon fruit looks like, the plant or whatever you want to call it, the cactus, check it out. Go look at some images on the internet. It's pretty darn wild. All right, so I just want to say thanks for dropping by here a while. This is a longer show than I planned, but at least we're now caught up to September. So the next few shows, I got to somehow cover a lot of ground and make it a little bit shorter to get through the month of September so we can get all caught up. But anyway, I appreciate your being here. I wish you all the best. Tremendous peace and love to you. Lavender Sky Panther. Bye.